I agree with that. I mean, I think people are really, really dumb. And I think they also, it's not just because they're lied to. I think if all the facts were laid out before them, they would still choose to be dumb. Another unfortunate thing that we saw in this election is that ranked choice voting doesn't really make much of a difference because they used it in like 4 states, I think, or 3 states.
I told you that thing was a scam. I knew that was a terrible system. I do want to let Christy get in here, but I just want to say that, yes, the Democrats spent fortunes untold on these voter registration campaigns for a reason. We'll never know how much money they actually spent on it, but it was millions upon possibly even hundreds of millions of dollars. They didn't spend that money for no reason. They knew that they could guilt trip the country into voting for their guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Christy. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think COVID really played into the hands of the Democrats. I think that's partially not just, circumstance. I think Trump really fell flat on his face during COVID. I think he could have stood up to Fauci. I think he could have stood up for the economy and the country, and he didn't. He sort of waffled in between the two. Some people thought if he was elected for a second term, then he would really start to say what he felt. But if you watch Donald Trump at all, he always said what he felt. So I always thought that was a little strange that he wasn't in this particular case. So yeah, I mean, it's every election we go through this, but there was a particular energy of this is a life or death election. We have to hold our nose and vote for Joe Biden because Donald Trump's a fascist, Donald Trump's a racist, Donald Trump is costing lives, and in particular, the COVID death number was getting played into that propaganda as well.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for COVID, Donald Trump could have won by a lot.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I heard an echo too. Do you guys still hear it?
I think it's gone now.
It went away. All right. So, where is this comment? I really want to read. Somebody brought up ranked choice voting. All right. Lisa Savage, who is in a state that has ranked choice voting, she only got 5% as Green Party Senate candidate in Maine. They have ranked choice voting. Shout out to Cannabis Sativa for bringing that up. Dak, you explained before how you think that ranked choice voting is a scam. Could you explain why that is, and what do you propose would be a better solution?
A better solution would be armed insurrection. Armed insurrection. It's my solution for most things. This is the problem with ranked choice voting. The ranked choice voting is basically just as idiotic as packing the Supreme Court. And this is the problem with it. With ranked choice voting, what you say, let's just make it very simple. You have your choice between Trump, Biden, and Joe Jorgensen, okay? All right. So you pick Joe Jorgensen, but if she's not your first choice, then your second vote will go to Joe Biden. What this does is this allows Joe Biden to receive votes that he should not receive. Because when you say that you're going to pick Joe Jorgensen, but if she doesn't get first place, then your vote will go to Biden. And this basically allows Biden or the other establishment major party candidates to harvest votes that they did not receive. And so what it does is it completely delegitimizes the third party candidates because they have no actual clout. The people who are voting for them only temporarily, but their vote their vote for the third party candidates won't count. It will count when it goes to Biden or Trump. This is how it works, it squanders your vote, as I'm hearing myself echoing again. And God almighty, why do we keep having this echo on here? It drives me up a wall.
All right, let's mute each other's mics. Let's try to figure out who has the echo. All right, so everybody mute their mic, and then I'll do a mic check, and then we'll go one by one. You guys all muted your mics? All right. I'm not hearing an echo from when I'm talking, so we'll start with Dak. Go ahead. Say something.
Echo, 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 echo.
All right. It's not Dak. Reed.
Hello, hello, hello.
No echo. Jeff.
Oh, who is that?
Hello, hello, hello.
All right. Now Christy.
Oh my.
Oh no, is it me? Am I the echo?
No, I think it resets once like somebody mutes their
Yeah.
mic. All right, so how about we do this? Whenever somebody talks, everybody else mutes their mic except for the person speaking.
Just like in the presidential debate.
All right, does anybody have any objections to Dak's idea on ranked choice voting?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, what's her name? Lisa Savage got 5%, which is more than just about any Green Party candidate for Senate has gotten. I mean, most people don't really know about the Green Party. Howie Hawkins, I think, did a lot better in Maine than he did elsewhere, because it was ranked choice voting. So, I mean, it's one of many factors that enables people to not be blackmailed by the Democrats into, voting for them rather than the candidate they really prefer. I mean, that's one of the reasons why third parties have had such a difficult time breaking through, is because people are scared out of their wits. Oh my God, the Republican boogeyman, Trump or Bush, whoever is going to win if I don't vote for the Democrat. So they're scared. But if you look at the polls, people do support there being a third party. They're just afraid, and this is one way of reducing that fear.
I think it might be something that's going to take time because people are still stuck in this two-party mentality. Where they still think that third parties are so unviable that they're going to have to make them their third or fourth choice. But maybe after some time, they can be more viable if we do have a ranked choice voting. What do you guys think?
I think that, so if I had ranked choice voting in Utah, I would have chosen Joe Jorgensen as 1, Kanye West as 2, and then I would have written in Ron Paul as number 3. I would not have filled in Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And I think that most people voting third party as their, who would vote third party as their first choice anyway, I think most of them probably wouldn't fill out Joe Biden or Donald Trump. The only people who will fill out Joe Biden or Donald Trump are the people who ended up voting for either of them in this election because they were scared. Then they would have chosen someone else and then put Joe Biden or Donald Trump as their number 2. So I don't think it actually steals from anyone, because I think the people who vote for either of those candidates, I think the people who didn't vote for either of those candidates probably wouldn't fill them in as number 2 or 3, and that the only people who would be voting differently are the ones who voted out of fear for either of those two.
Yeah, and we also have to think about how they might be thinking, okay, it's just like this here, but whatever I put might affect the results, like in all these other states and then in the country as a whole. I think exposure is also still a problem, where people just aren't familiar with the third-party candidates, but they are very familiar with the other 2 main candidates. So I don't know. It's going to have to be. We can't have a sudden solution to this. I think it's going to take a lot of time.
The question of what would voters do is irrelevant to the question of what is the function of ranked choice voting. And the function of ranked choice voting is eventually to get that third party directed or redirected to a major party candidate. That's what it's all about. It gives you a second, third, fourth, or even fifth shot at the ballot, which is pretty bizarre because in a way you're voting 5 times. But what it says is that if your third party candidate doesn't work out on the first ballot, then you can pick somebody else. And so what that does is it takes away all of the bargaining power from those third parties, because it gives people the option to eventually redirect their vote towards the major parties. So focusing on the statistics of what people did in isolated incidents is really not the point. The point is that there is a reason why the establishment is becoming very amenable to the idea of ranked choice voting. It's because it completely pulls the rug out from under the third party candidates. If you see third party candidates endorsing this, then they're endorsing their own political suicide.
No,
I think that's a big point. But,
Jeff seems to disagree. What do you think, Jeff?
I see no evidence whatsoever that the establishment supports ranked choice voting. The Democrats seem to be very much against it for the most part. The only exceptions are people like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. In general, mainstream Democrats are against it because they want to be able to blackmail people into not voting for third parties and making sure that third parties don't get a foothold. And one thing I just recalled about Lisa Savage's race is that the Democrats went out of their way, and maybe the Republicans too, I don't know, went out of their way to make sure that people didn't know she was running. She was shut out of one of the last debate, and the Democratic candidates' campaign staff went around in their canvassing telling people that she had dropped out of the race, that Lisa Savage had dropped out of the race. Ranked choice voting is not a panacea, obviously, and that's because a lot of people still don't know about the Green Party or the Libertarians or whatever.
Would this also solve the problem, like ranked choice voting? Would it also solve the problem? Because Brian Fauch brought up a point about how it is good for local elections. In DC, we had races with multiple candidates and multiple won races with only 30% of votes. 30% is not the majority of the population in DC. So could ranked choice voting solve this problem of candidates winning by only like 30%, but they just got more votes than the other candidates?
I think that we should probably all look into what the outcomes have been with ranked choice voting a lot more before we draw any firm conclusions about it.
I just explained that the way that it worked in this particular election is separate from the function. What it accomplishes in theory is what I'm concerned about, not about how Lisa Savage did in her particular election and Howie Hawkins. That's not. Yeah, there were so many problems with the Green Party this year and with third-party candidates in general that this election would be more of an outlier for third-party candidates than anything else. Ralph Nader even.
Yeah, well, that's my point, Dak. That's my point. We can't base conclusions about ranked choice voting.
Right, but you're not listening to me. What I'm saying is that there's the function of it is separate from from this particular election. I'm skeptical of it for those reasons.
Okay. All right, we'll get Christy and Reed's voice, and then we'll move on to another topic.
Well, I mean, as far as ranked choice voting, it's not something I know a lot about or have thought a lot about, but I think still with third-party candidates, the minimal exposure that they get on the public stage, I don't know if ranked choice voting would really help them. I think really people, whether they're included in the debates, I mean, that could be a game changer too. But I just feel like people aren't really aware of how many third parties there are.
There's a lot.
Right. And I think, when people talk about 2016 and they heard, oh, you're a third party voter, they just assume you voted for Jill Stein. They didn't even realize there was a libertarian candidate. So I think there is a lot, it's a much bigger hill than just the ranked choice voting to really help third parties. I think there's a lot more exposure and education that needs to be brought out to the almost, I mean, the mainstream, essentially, because the media is not going to help the third parties and they're not going to include in debate. So how do they get out to the people more?
Does anybody agree with propaganda here? He said, I personally support having a revolution and forcing in plebiscite, have the people vote without politicians or parties, one system in place to bring forth new bills.
This is, I think he's referring to the system, or at least something similar to the system that Mike Gravel has advocated for, where there's just a people's legislature and there's no representative government. Sure, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me and Reed discussed a little bit about Mike Gravel's book. Dak, I know you talked about this with Mike Gravel himself. Do you think that this could be something that can unite people that believe in socialism ideology and libertarian ideology?
Well, I would advocate in the first place to just abolish political parties in general, because I think what political parties do is they create this false sense of distinction among candidates. I mean, if you didn't have political parties and you forced politicians to run on the issues, then you would see a shift in the public perception. But in the people's legislature, there wouldn't really be many politicians, because everyone would be able to introduce legislation as long as they adhere to the certain requirements laid in Gravel's plan. But yes, I do think that if we eliminate this idea of party affiliation and we allow the ideas to stand on their own merit, then we would see that people would come around to them. I think when you get rid of the idea of party loyalty, then people are going to be more open-minded. I mean, we're already seeing right now, you linked us earlier to an article, which I assume we're going to talk about soon, which is that how Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are being shut out of Biden's administration or cabinet, supposedly because the Democrats are worried about losing seats in the next election. Well, imagine if we didn't have to worry about losing seats, and if we just allowed the ideas to stand on their own, then we would find that a lot of these other considerations are perfectly frivolous.
All right, Reed, you want to have the last word here before I bring up that article that Dak just mentioned?
Yeah, sure. I think the most direct form of democracy is no government. But I like the idea of direct democracy if it's localized. I think it's a horrible idea on a federal level. But if it's localized, I think it's great. I think the larger pool you create of direct democracy, the more exploitation of the minority you have if you keep it localized and separated and leave it up to communities, and there's less exploitation. So it's something I can get behind.
And I would just want to add to that one of the core principles of the Green Party is grassroots democracy. So, as a Green Party advocate, I would say yes, absolutely. That's the form of government we should aim for, is much more direct democracy rather than representative democracy. However, the question is not really, is that a good idea? I think a lot of us could agree that it is, but how do we get there? That's a long way off.